So, relative to the first film, I'd say this is there's been a big change in that it's been completely kind of, the first film was retconned and moved into the second film. So it's basically a reboot. The second film relative to the first, and every kind of area has been significantly improved relative to the first one. So there's a high death count, there's lots of prosthetic designs, we've got some excellent performances from like Scott, Simon Callow, and there's tons of death. There's like a kill count of like over 60 in this in this film, so horror fans will definitely get what they wanted.
I would say it's gorier, more violent, it's got more heart to it, and it's got more friends. More friends will gather to take revenge. So yeah, it's bigger, bolder, better, more violent.
So you're definitely right. With horror in general is a kind of, it's a genre which is normally looked down on, I guess, or it's not really received very well critically all the times. And not only is horror looked down on, slashers in particular, which is a sub-genre of horror, is normally one of the worst. It's never really received that well, and there's often large disparities between how the critics view it versus what the audience view it. That was extremely evident in Winnie the Pooh 1. The audience was a bit 50-50 at points. I would say there was a lot of people who genuinely really did like it. There was a lot of people who didn't like it from the audience as well, though. Critics, it was almost unanimous across the board. They all hated the first. It was like 100 to 1 or something. Whereas with the sequel, one of the biggest jumps we've actually seen has actually been from the critics. When it first, particularly the genre critics, when it first came out, we had a really high kind of Rotten Tomatoes score. Like, more critics like it than don't like it, and the audience score is way higher. Like, I think currently on Rotten Tomatoes it's sitting like over 80%, which is significantly higher than what it was in the first film. Ultimately, for me and Scott, it's nice that the critics are enjoying it more, like the sequel versus the first film. But to be honest, that's not really something we're putting too much weighting on, because this film is for the audience. Like, it's for the horror audience. They're the ones we want to entertain ultimately. So what we're mostly happy with is that the audience are liking the second film significantly more than the first. I'll say a little bit and then we'll pass on to Scott. It's risky doing that. You're right. It's a tropey kind of approach to have a final girl. But where we can in this film, we've tried to be a bit ballsy and a bit risky and make interesting decisions rather than playing it safe the whole time. So, Scott?
Yeah, no, you kind of answered it. But yeah, I was going to say that. And just it's to make it a bit original. Like, you're so used to seeing final girl females and all that kind of stuff, and you do kind of have one in this. Like, Lexi, I would say, kind of like sits in that place, but yeah, it was just to also make it different, and also to make this film and not have it be Christopher Robin versus Winnie the Pooh. It would be like a wasted opportunity,
Yeah, because ultimately the original source material, which this is heavily inspired by, that's what it's about. Like, the first book, if you read like the 1926 A.M. Milner book, that book is about the relationship between Christopher Robin and these creatures in the forest. So to me, it would be it'd be going in the wrong direction if you tried to just spin this away from Christopher Robin and made it, I don't know, Christine Robin or something like that, just to have a final girl in there. It'd feel forced. So thematically there is some really interesting comparisons between there, because like part of the reason between making them brothers is, you've seen this before in other horror films like Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. It gives a kind of element of there being a fate between them, that when they were once kids, they were brothers, they got separated, they, without their knowledge, were still interacting with each other because Billy had transformed into this young Pooh character, and then in the end they brought back and came back, and then Christopher's had this realization of what Winnie the Pooh actually is, and there's a nice mirroring element there of which you can see at the start of the film, where Christopher Robin in his hometown has he's coming up with all of these crazy stories. You know, there's these monsters in the woods, blah 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 blah, and he's being oppressed by the community, thinking he's lying and putting this pressure on him and making him a bit of an outcast. And that's exactly what's happening to Owl and all of these and like Pooh and Piglet and these creatures, is they're an outcast of that society. So there's kind of like some interesting parallels you can kind of play with there, which we have done, and there's this like trauma element with both of them, which we kind of explore in the film before they kind of collide together. So me and Scott, we both absolutely love horror films. We're obsessed with the genre. It's almost exclusively what we watch and live by. And we want to do stuff which is really original and different. So it's crazy to us when we hear people say, oh, it's so unoriginal to take a character like this and transform it. It's like, to us, it's like, it's completely original. Like, we've never seen it done. That's why it's got so much attention. We're like subverting something and changing it from being this cuddly, friendly version into something completely off the walls and crazy. You know, I view that as more original than, say, Barbie, taking the concept of Barbie and just making a Barbie film out of it. Like, you've taken an IP and you've done exactly what that IP is. We've taken an IP and we've twisted it and changed it in a completely wild, different direction, and we're trying to make these risky decisions integrated into it, like Christopher Robin being the final boy, and other elements like that. So me and Scott, yeah, we love slashers. We've done that. We've tried to be as original as possible, because in horror, we feel like we see a lot of the same thing a lot of the time. Anytime we go to the cinema, you know, it's the 10th installment of a character we've seen before, and you know, there's some concepts, even the concepts which feel really new and really exciting, they feel like they're done in a bit of a dulled down way at points, and they have a little bit of a PG-13 approach to them, which we didn't want to do. We want to see something which we feel is quite original and just go really R-rated with it. So that's what we've done there, and that's what we're going to do with all of our kind of twisted childhood universe films. So yeah, with the first film, the budget was very small. Now we got significantly more for the second film, but our scope massively expanded as well. So there was extra challenges which kind of accompanied that bigger budget. Hence you can see the death count. The death count is so high because we didn't want to just kind of ride on by and have an easy time with the production. We really wanted to push boundaries and really make something we were really happy with and proud of. And the aim now is with Pooh 3 and the follow-up films, their budgets have increased further than what we were working on here. So it's just going to get even more extreme. And I'm just going to get bigger and bigger and have, you know, crazier kills, more kills, and try and keep it down the practical route. One really important element, or something I really want to ingrain in this franchise, is when something happens in a previous film, it has a direct follow-up onto the upcoming films. So in number 2, there's a way it ends, so spoiler alert, at the end of the film, which leaves kind of Piglet, Pooh and the others in a bit of a bad state. Now, that damage and how they've been impacted, I want to carry on to the third film, so they have this kind of regenerative effect, and that will alter how they're going to look. So the idea is, you know, when they get damaged, their cells rebuild, but like with, you know, normal cells, when they make a copy of themselves, it's never a perfect copy, and like, you know, that's how it leads to cancer and such like that. So with this, when I want them to rebuild and, you know, things to regenerate, like part of their head or like their whole head regenerating, it's never a perfect copy. So it will come back, but something's a bit different. Maybe the eyes are a bit more wonky. Maybe if half the head's come back, it's got a bit of like a Bernie kind of effect with it, and we can keep evolving the creatures. And another element is, I want there to be an effect where when the oppressive forces on the characters escalate and get bigger and bigger, the characters themselves will also push back and grow in power to try and combat it. So now in the third film, you're going to have the town and everyone is aware of the existence of these creatures. They're going to really go for them, and when they go for them, there's going to be more oppression and there's going to be more risk of death on these friends of the 100-acre woods, and they're going to have to combat that by getting bigger and stronger. So there'll be physical changes to them to fight back against that.
Yeah, so we've already shot Bambi: The Reckoning. We shot that in January, and a different director did that. So it was Dan Allen. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of like allow different tones to be in every entry of the film. So Bambi it's got heart to it, but it's a monster movie. It's a proper monster movie sort of thing. There's some cool carnage, and there's a cool bit where a car gets flipped over and all this kind of stuff. It's a bit like Jurassic Park, but with Bambi. And then I'm directing in 2 weeks Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. And because it's about Peter Pan and he's abducting children and saying, I'm going to take you to Neverland, obviously that I can't really have much fun with that. So I'm going down a more tonally serious route, which is something that I love anyway. So I'm kind of looking at inspirations of the films like The Black Phone, a French film called Switchblade Romance. They're the type of films that I'm kind of like taking inspiration from. And then after that, Reese is then directing Pinocchio Unstrung, which I think is going to be like, it's going to have heart to it again, but it's going to be more fun, I'd say, more in the vein of Chucky. And then obviously then we lead into Pooniverse Monsters Assemble, which is going to be like our version of the Avengers. And it's like all these horror greats all put in a movie together. And they are going to be going wild on the town, and they're going to kill everyone. I want a death count of 300 people. I want these monsters to be fighting each other, so some of the monsters don't get on. And I feel like, don't go into it expecting the monsters to come out unscathed. There will be some of them that will die, and you will never see them again in these films. Like, some of them are going to die, and the stakes are high. So yeah, it's going to be mad, mental.
The only thing is, no one should get put off by the film being a sequel to the first film. You know, everything gets explained in the first 5 or 10 minutes. The first film was kind of retconned into the second film, so it all makes sense. So anyone who wants to watch it, you know, don't be intimidated by it being a follow-up.
Yeah, and I would say just like, thank you so much for anyone supporting the movies. If you carry on supporting, you go to the cinemas, you make the effort to go out and watch it, all of this support helps the next movies get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we want to keep going. We want to keep giving the audiences what they want. And if you have any ideas, or you have anything you want more of or less of, message us on Instagram, and we read everything and we take it on. This is a film for the fans, not the critics. It's for the fans. So we'll listen to what the fans say. So if you message us, we're very open.